giving her internet a break or something.
Yes, perhaps so. Oh, it looks like we've just gone live.
Okay, we have just
Who
gone
are
live.
we?
So hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stonehouse Readers. I'm Shannon Bowring, a fiction graduate just a few months ago, which is still new to me to say that I'm a graduate of Stonecoast. And with me is my co-host, Troy Myers. And Troy and Amanda started up this lovely series when in the midst of the pandemic, when we all needed some writing community outreach. And they invited me on, and I'm happy to be part of it. I'm still new to the hosting gig, so there might be some bumps in the road, but we'll carry through. And tonight we have Eder Williams McKnight and Andrea Lani reading with us. So we're very excited to have you both. And I've never met either of you in person, but as a Stonecoast person, you kind of feel like you know someone anyway. So. And am I forgetting anything, Troy? Please jump in.
Well, just hi. I'm Troy, poetry from 15. And Amanda's in the background producing the show, and we are super happy to have Shannon helping out and hosting. She'll do some solo hosting, we'll do some co-hosting. It's wonderful to have her as part of the group. We're always looking for help, just so you know. And Shannon, I have to say congratulations again. I just saw another publication for you this week popped up on
Thank you.
Facebook, a lyrical essay. You just got an agent. You read some great books a week or two ago. Fantastic. Yeah. You're also a literary genius, which adds to our program's credibility.
I try. I do what I can.
I always say hi to the parents. So hi, Mom, who watches the next morning, and to Amanda's parents who also watch, and anyone else's parents who's out there wondering, what did your student do with $50,000 when they went to Stonecoast? Now you'll know.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for supporting us and being a part of us and listening to what we have to share. So Eder, we're going to start with you tonight, and you are in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and you were just awarded a pretty great sounding fellowship. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it was such a beautiful surprise to hear that I was awarded a writing fellowship that will take place in Asheville, North Carolina through Trillium Arts, the Miss Sarah Black Women Writers Fellowship. And I just want to say thank you to all of Trillium, to E. Patrick Johnson, to all that host of folk. And I just found that out last week, so it's pretty great. A couple weeks ago, so it's pretty great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Andrea just hopped back online, so if she can say hello and introduce herself, that would be great.
Hi, I'm sorry about that. I hope that my internet is now. I'm Andrea Lani, and I graduated Stonecoast Fiction Winter 14. Live in Maine and just published a book, which I'll read from tonight.
Fantastic.
Great.
Can you hear me this time?
It's a little laggy. Maybe we could try without video again. That might help a little. But we're going to let Eder read first, so hopefully your internet can catch up to us a little bit. And Eder, you said that you have a book coming out. You're going to be featured in an anthology soon as well. Are you reading from that?
So Liz Blood, who is an artist writer here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, had the idea of creating an anthology all about like the natural world of Oklahoma that's coming from a creative perspective and targeted toward younger readers. And so she invited me to write for that, and I did. And so hopefully that will be forthcoming maybe in a couple months. A creative field guide to Oklahoma is what it'll be called.
It's a great title.
Yes.
I love it. Okay. And what are you going to be reading for us tonight?
Well, I want to thank Troy because he's just always thoughtful and remembers his folks. And he and I were graduating together in the poetry department. And so I just want to give a formal thank you to Troy. And when he said, well, how about something for Women's Month, Women's History Month, I said, so this is going to sound random, but it's really connected. Back in like 2011, I think 11, a friend of mine is a visual artist. And so she had this idea and she said, I'm a bookmaker. I make the paper, I do the art, I do everything. Would you like to write a poem for these images you see? And I said, yes, they were so beautiful. And it was all about mangrove trees.
Oh,
Yeah. And then I had to geek out and learn everything I could about mangroves and how they're so essential to the global ecology. And so then I wrote this poem kind of inspired by her images. And it was in this part of her own MFA program project called Move Not. So it's very, very small. And I think we have some images that you might be able to see pretty soon. But I thought, well, why not read this for Women's History Month? And you'll hear why it matters pretty soon. Okay.
okay. Looking forward to it.
So I'll just start. How's that?
That sounds great. Take it away.
All right. But move not. And I'll just preface this by saying that I was trying to imagine not only like the power of mangrove trees and what their roots do, but also like they have had to have been here since the beginning of Earth or something like that. And so I began to think like that when I was putting it together. It's going to read a little bit like a story. And you'll see some images scroll, and it'll just show you what is inside of the book. And with that, I'll begin. But move not. In the beginning, ice, strong as wood, moving. Then water, with cutting rock and sand drilling through ice. Then streams and pools, seed, shell, gill. God then divided ocean from marsh, layered marsh with salt. Ocean, drawn to salt, engulfed it again and destroyed it. And then there were the ages, and then Spartina grasses flourished in new marsh, and then their limit at the latitude of mangroves. From the place of not time, from the place of gray, white air, rocked a seed across ocean waves, donning a crown atop a hardened red-brown shell, dragging a long penile root. It was stuffed with empire. The coast was without form and void. The crowned root dropped and drowned in brackish stew, buried by growth and weight. The shell split on sea rock, back cracked, entrails surviving in tenebrous bass rhythms of distant waves and pounding mud, the thud knocking and pressing against its clamor for sunlight and air. To live is to invent virally. Cast young roots from the branch's neck. From that line protrude another. From that shoot, two more. Soon each projection shall kiss water, touch sodden ground, burrow with the skill of ants. In ghoulish night, roots rocket, fly in arcs by day, they appear multiplied. The seed is now a flourish. Dainty yellow flowers, green leaves, nesting egrets crown the tree, which has become 10 and then a generation. 20 feet below, prop roots walk to resting places and one another. There, in the tangle, worms tunnel, shrimp breed, Oysters ride the roots toward sun. Barnacles climb, crabs creep in crevices. The roseate spoonbill lands from heaven and says, "This is good." Unafraid of salt, the mangrove tree faces brine through sacrifice. One leaf is filled with the holy salt, yellows, dies. The time is now. Storms, water cells circle like drones. Centrifugal mud thrashes land. From the split of earth below, sea displaces its life, bewildered, startled, onto the line of mangroves. They still themselves into wet earth, absorb the force, but move not. At this, the waves are held and slowed. At this, the highland intact. The mangled empire holds its peace, a queendom of design. I will read for you one more thing. This is pretty hot off the presses. And it is called Proverbs 32. I was commissioned to write this for a church community I belong to, and there is no real Proverbs 32. Like, if you know Proverbs, they all stop at 31. So I started a new one. You might also know that Proverbs 31 is always used in honor of women, and it talks about the virtuous woman and all this kind of thing. And well, I thought we needed another one. So here we go. Proverbs 32. Her fingers are stacked with jewels. They raise up, fan out, ball into fist, then cup to receive oil. She anoints the head of child whom she lifts to the stars, plucks down from constellation to carry as light. The woman crushes lavender, rubs ache from shoulders, heaves pounds of dirt to bed, seeds dancing in her pockets. They are words she will plant into ground. They will root, then blossom into song. In the dry season, as wind strips verdant leaves, she finds water, gathers bone, boils marrow for soup. From a little grain, she mills flour for bread. She bakes and breaks loaves into 2, 4, 16. The masses are fed. They run. They do not grow weary. The crooked, the unjust, blight her eyes. She retreats into stillness, a tuning fork, feet to crown. She finds right words to spur warriors to fight. If she must draw a weapon, she will slay. When she finds the broken, she will heal. Her mystery is before us, but how to explain her work of weaving, rug, sweater, hair, the lost that she braids together? If we see her in tatters, haggard on the street, unraveled, look with wonder. Many have pushed her into corners, behind doors, beneath feet, so afraid of her godness, the vastness of her love. She lifts her fingers, ringed with amethyst to anoint, sapphire for prophecy, emerald to slice illusions, garnet for times of war. She was there at the beginning, as planets formed. She was called Wisdom. Touch her hands. Find your life. And with that, I'll give it back to the hosts.
That was fantastic and entirely appropriate for Women's Month. I don't think we could have found a better bunch of poems than that. Thank you for sharing. I loved so much of that. I didn't realize that there was Proverbs ended at 31 and you went into 32. And I think that you need to try to get that into every Bible. I would read that Bible. Just fantastic. That line, she will slay. Heck yeah.
I figured that needed to be in the scriptures there.
I loved it. And the one about the mangrove was just so beautifully done from the beginnings and then going through. Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's very funny that I hadn't read the mangrove poem in like a very long time. And so I'm seeing that themes are repeated, from then into this very current poem. And my other poems have gone in very different directions, but it's just funny. I guess when I think of women, these are the things that come up, for me.
Yeah. And fittingly so. I love the idea that it's the woman feeding the masses and providing the miracles. And it's just, we get it. We know. Fantastic.
Eder, when you said hot off the presses, you mean you just wrote it?
Yeah, that one is pretty, I just finished it a couple of days ago.
Oh, wow.
Was that the extra one you wrote for tonight, or you were working on that already?
I was working on it exactly. When you asked me, I was struggling through it. And I said, well, I guess I better now really work on it because I have 2 occasions, to read this for. So your asking me gave me a lot of motivation to really work on it. And then the art ministry at my church also asked for something, and I was like, okay, we got to just go hard on this one. But it wasn't, somehow it took a minute to figure out what I was doing with that.
It is beautiful. Proverbs 31 is, kind of famous because she has some business skill. She buys land. It's not exactly what I would expect coming out of patriarchal,
Old Testament,
culture, But you went way beyond 31, and it was better written. So I don't know.
I'm not gonna touch that, okay?
Yeah, you're better than that. Beautiful lines in that first poem, also.
Yeah.
Who did those illustrations? Did you tell us?
Yes, I want to make sure I shout her out. Her name is Suzanne Sawyer. Suzanne Sawyer, her studio is called Wild Ginseng. Okay, here we go. Wait, this way. Okay. Wild Ginseng, and it used to be called Down Home Girl Studio. You can also find her on Etsy. Just want to give her a little plug. So just look up Suzanne with a Z and 2 N's Sawyer. She is phenomenal, just such vision. She does textiles, she does leatherworking, she does visual art, she makes books, she's a librarian. What does she not do? I don't know. So I'm just lucky to call her my friend.
Yeah, she sounds fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you again. That was really, really wonderful.
Thank you, guys.
We'll bring you back at the end. Oh, Eder, she's gone.
Oh.
Well, we will bring you back. We promise. It was almost like the old hook.
Right, at the Apollo. Okay, enough.
Excuse me. We'll bring you back at the end, of course, to talk with Andrea also.
Okay, that sounds fantastic.
Wow.
Thank you.
It's always so inspiring, Shannon, and Amanda have talked about it too. When someone comes on and says, I wasn't writing much, and then I knew I had to come on, I had to make something up.
Yeah, there's nothing like that pressure, that deadline.
And we're so nice, right? it's all friendly and family here, but I still love when that happens.
Yeah, me too.
Our next writer is Andrea Lani. Andrea is having some connectivity issues, so we are not sure if we'll get her picture or just her lovely voice. Andrea, you graduated in fiction, and if you're Winter 14, we overlapped a little bit then.
Yeah, we must have. You look a little familiar.
Yeah, I was younger, I guess. Less grade. But thank you for remembering me. It means a lot. What are you bringing tonight? What have you been working on lately, Andrea?
I'm going to try to see if my video will work for a minute. I just wanted to share this is weird.
That is your book.
Uphill both ways. Uphill both ways.
Uphill both ways.
First, subtitles Hiking Toward Happiness on the Colorado Trail, and it is about a 100-mile hike my husband and I did with our 3 kids about 6 years ago, and also about the same hike my husband and I did 20 years before that, and the natural, cultural, and environmental history of Colorado.
I got most of that. So it's called.
Should I turn my video off?
I think maybe try it without video. I had a hard time hearing.
We enjoyed seeing the book, though.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's called Uphill Both Ways?
Uphill Both Ways, Hiking Toward Happiness on the Colorado Trail.
This is a book release for you, so that's always
a book release.
Extra pleasure for us. Is the book already out, or is it on its way to the stores?
It came out March 1st.
Okay, so it's available online.
Yep.
Very exciting.
It is very exciting. And you said you took a hike. It's about a hike you did with your husband, and then also 20 years ago.
Yeah, my husband and our 3 kids did this in 2016, and my husband and I did it in 1996 also.
Okay. How long is the hike?
It's almost 500 miles.
500 miles?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. You better write a book, right? That's fantastic.
Material.
Yeah, that's a lot of material. And this is in Colorado. Is there a name for the trail you were on? Did I miss that?
It's the Colorado Trail. It goes from Denver to Durango.
Okay. How long is it?
I'm originally from Colorado, but I live in Maine now.
You're in Maine.
Yeah.
How long does it take to hike 500 miles?
It took us 6 weeks.
Wow. Okay. Well, congratulations on the publication.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shannon, have you ever hiked 500 miles?
I can barely walk 5 miles.
Even over the course
I can dream about it though.
We started with my first steps as a toddler. Maybe I've gone 500 miles. That is very impressive.
Yeah.
You know Suzanne Greenberg out west, Andrea? She's in California now.
I don't think so.
She wrote a book. I mean, I've met her. She teaches with Patricia Smith, another alumni of Stonecoast we should bring on.
Yeah.
University of Sierra Nevada, I think. But she wrote a book, similar kind of thing. So fantastic that you got to walk and spend all that time in nature, and also got to write a memoir about it. What part are you going to read from tonight?
Well, if my internet will cooperate, I would actually 2 short sections, one from the beginning, near the beginning, and one near the end.
Okay.
And I just want to introduce a few characters. My 3 kids are Milo, Zephyr, and Emmett. Milo was 15, and Zephyr and Emmett were 11 at the time. My husband, Curry, and like I said, Curry and I had done the hike 20 years before this. And the first part I'm going to read comes at the end of our first week of hiking.
Wonderful. And
does
Andrea,
that sound okay?
It sounds great. And maybe read a little slowly, but
Yep.
We can always bring you back when the internet's better. We can always have you come back, and
Okay.
we don't want to undercut your book release at all. Well, let's give it a shot. Any thoughts before we kick off? You ready?
Not ready.
Cool.
After a morning break, Milo, Zephyr, and Emmett hike off together. I hear snippets of their conversation before they disappear around a bend. Talk of superheroes, food they want to buy when they get to town, beef jerky, potato chips, peanut butter, movies they want to watch when they get home. So far, the three of them are getting along better than they ever do at home, as if the four-year age difference between Milo and the twins has compressed. Out here, they've had to mature in some ways, taking on responsibilities not expected of them in daily life, while at the same time, Milo is freed from age-appropriate aloofness to be silly and have fun. If that camaraderie among brothers is the only gift the trail bestows this summer, it will be enough. The trail winds in and out of forests, wet meadows, dry, grassy hillsides, and waist-high aspen trees that couldn't have been here 20 years ago. I love moving through the varied landscapes, noticing how tree and flower species change with altitude, direction of slope, proximity to water. Now I'm walking among bristlecone pines with an understory of pink geranium, deep purple but dusky bird tongue, yellow stonecrop. Now I'm in an aspen grove with red paintbrush, white mariposa lilies, yellow sunflowers, blue and white columbines. Now I'm passing a stream bank, cool and moist and pink with elephants' heads and shooting stars. The first time we hiked the Colorado Trail, I knew the names of quaking aspen, ponderosa pine, a few flowers, a couple of birds. Over the last 20 years, I slowly learned to identify elements of the natural world in Maine, eventually trained to become a Maine master naturalist. On trips to Colorado, I take along stacks of field guides and try to soak up as much natural history as I can in 1 week windows. I used to worry that naming the natural world was akin to colonizing it, that knowing the human constructed identity of trees, plants, and animals would strip them of their wonder. Perhaps a young child seeing the world for the first time should approach wild things as a mystery to be discovered. But over time, the world loses its novelty, and the wild riot of growing things becomes a dense green curtain, a barrier to connection. By learning their names, I've learned to more clearly see the differences between one green thing and another, as well as what connects them. Because I know so much more about nature now, I see much more than I did then. I greet the wildflowers, trees, birds, mammals, and insects like old friends, while before they were a sea of unfamiliar and undistinguishable strangers. A white owl butterfly alights on a spruce branch, fanning velvety black wings striped with a bold white line. I try to take its picture, but it flies off and lands farther down the trail. I put the camera away and walk on, leapfrogging the butterfly, appreciating its beauty without trying to capture it. Throughout the day, more butterflies appear, rising from and landing on flowers. Their bright colors, yellow, pale green, orange, brown, amber, and gentle fluttering is guiding me down the trail. After another break, Curry and Milo power hike ahead, while Zephyr, Emmett, and I follow more slowly. The trail mounts a long, gently sloping hillside of pale green grass and colorful wildflowers. A mountain biker coming down the slope stops to chat. Where are you headed? Durango. I believe it a little more now that we've almost finished our first week. Wow, I wish my parents had been so cool. He turns to Emmett and Zephyr. You will remember this trip for the rest of your lives. Why does everyone say that? Zephyr asks after the biker has ridden off. I laugh. Because it's true. You will remember this trip for the rest of your life. The boys give me a skeptical look and troop ahead uphill. They have no idea what a rare experience it is for a couple of 11-year-olds to spend a whole summer hiking through the mountains. If we were normal parents, we would have taken them to Disney World. But we're just crazy enough to think a 500-mile walk through the wilderness is the perfect family vacation. Beyond the Ponderosa Grove, mountains come into view, distant and hazy blue. The mountains. We have been, technically, hiking in mountains all week, the Platte River and Kenosha Mountains of the Front Range. But our route has taken us through an area of forested uplands north of Pikes Peak and south of the cluster of high peaks that includes Mount Evans. There, on the horizon, real mountains start. Our first crossing of the Continental Divide at Georgia Pass the day after tomorrow. Beyond that, the 10-mile range, and then the Sawatch Range, where the highest mountains in the state rise. While the entire Front Range stood resplendent before us as we drove across the plains toward Denver, we caught only brief glimpses of mountain skylights since we entered the Gamble Oak Forest back in Roxborough. Now the mountains appear snow-dotted and real, just a few days' hike away. Some people like to point out that the Rocky Mountains are so tall and jagged because they're so young. At around 25 million years old, the Colorado Rockies are mere infants compared to the 480-million-year-old Appalachians. But the rocks that make up these mountains formed through a long history of mountain building, volcanic activity, and sedimentation. Most of the rock that forms today's mountains, the basement rock, dates from the pre-Cambrian era. The oldest is about 2.7 billion years old. Prior to the formation of modern Rockies, at least 3 mountain ranges rose and fell here, beginning with the Colorado orogeny around 1.7 to 1.8 billion years ago, followed by the ancestral Rocky Mountains 300 to 320 million years ago, and the Laramide orogeny 40 to 80 million years ago. Between each mountain building event, erosion, deposition, and layers of volcanic debris smooth the landscape to a flat plain, like an etch-a-sketch shading clean. Meanwhile, the continental plate on which the rectangle we call Colorado sits, scudded around the surface of the planet, bumping into and ripping apart from other plates, lolling around the equator, and submerging under shallow seas and swamps. After the formation of the modern Rockies, Ice Age glaciers sharpened peaks, carved cirques, and deposited moraines, giving the mountains their rugged appearance. We're hiking through just a moment in a long history of geological drama, stretching far back into the past and far into the future. The boys have gotten ahead of me again, and I hike alone for a while until I come around a bend in the trail to find Emmett crouching over something on the ground. What do you see? A dead chipmunk. He points to a rodent curled as if in sleep in the middle of the trail. It's a golden-mounted ground squirrel, a regal name that is essentially a big chipmunk, and it appears to have had a fatal run-in with a boot or bike tire. Emmett takes his picture and we hike on. When we reach a grove of pine trees, he pauses and looks back over the hill we just climbed and sweeps his arm to take in the green, red, orange, yellow, and purple of the hillside. Isn't it so beautiful with all the wildflowers, he says. I stand beside him and look at the flowers and drifting butterflies, the aspen groves and bristlecone pine forests beyond, the foothills in the distance, and, out of sight, the plains stretching across the Midwest, the farms and forests we traveled through on our way from Maine. It is so beautiful. I take Emmett's hand and we hike on into the trees. If that sounded okay, I might move back to read another little bit. Okay, so this comes at the beginning of the very last week of the hike. Like I said, 6 weeks, so we've got 5 weeks down at this point, and we've just left the town of Silverton. I have low energy, post-town lethargy. We start out in the morning with fairly level walking, contouring along and gradually ascending a green hillside, rising up to red sandstone bluffs. Sheep graze high on the hill, tiny white dots on the green. The exposed soil of the trail is a rich, rosy hue. Like the Fountain Formation, whose red rocks we hiked among in Roxborough State Park, this colored formation rock is formed of sand from the ancestral Rocky Mountains, washed grain by grain, oxidized red, and laid down the sediment by ancient rivers. In the folds of the hillside, the rock is exposed and waterfalls trickle down the slick red surface. Huge conglomerate boulders have tumbled down from cliffs high above us, littering the hillside with hunks of gray and brown stone made up of many smaller, varied rocks glommed together like enormous chunks of fruitcake. Paintbrush and sunflowers bloom along the trail among papery corn lilies, and the trail winds amongst groves of living spruce. I hope we've left behind dead and dying trees for the rest of this trip. Mountain bikes wheel by, heading toward the pass. A man on horseback leading several pack mules loaded with supplies passes. That's how I want to hike the Colorado Trail next time, Emmett says. We stopped to eat lunch near a small lake, but Emmett, in the exact opposite mood he was in yesterday afternoon, protests the stop, saying, "The more we do now, the less we have to do later." As we near Rolling Mountain Pass, thunder rumbles in the distance. I slip the rain cover on my pack and put up my umbrella. A group of mountain bikers passes on their way down. "We decided it would be safer to go back," one of them says. "Yeah, it can get pretty nasty up there," I reply. The curse of the twin sisters. But today they let us pass with no more than a few drops of rain. Through the afternoon, we travel over high rolling meadows with steep reddish rocky peaks all around. Milo hikes behind me for part of the afternoon, so my pace can slow his and allow him to baby his blisters and a sore ankle. Usually I don't like being herded, but I've hardly hiked with Milo these last few weeks, so I don't mind him dogging my heels. Over the pass, we descend through Cascade Creek drainage, where spectacular waterfalls pound down tan and gray rock, fractured and splintered into horizontal plates. Curry and the boys climb up for a better look, while I enjoy the view from the trail. After entering a dense forest of living spruce, we set up camp in a clearing with a small, stagnant pond in the middle of it. Emmett and I hike back down the trail a short distance, and scramble down a steep slope to where water seeping down the hillside converges into a finger-sized trickle. We hold the mouths of the water bladders in this trickle and wait for them to fill, one after the other, then take them back to camp to treat while we wait for dinner to reconstitute. Curry collects tiny wild onions, cuts them paper thin, and mixes the slices into our beans and rice. Dark blue-black clouds spread across the sky, and we hurry through our chores, trying to beat the rain. But the weather holds off, and we enjoy a leisurely evening in camp. After we crawl into the tent, we hear footsteps outside. Zephyr pokes out his head and reports that deer are mingling nearby. In the morning, Zephyr and Emmett don't want to get going, and Milo's blisters are hurting him. The three of them hike in the slow lane with me. We cross a meadow of tall, waving grass and even taller corn trees. Conical peaks like cartoon mountains rise around us. In the distance, a huge rock shaped like an Egyptian cat statue rises from the top of the mountain. "Look at that rock," I say. "It looks like a sitting cat." "Nah," Milo replies. "It's an orc hiding behind its shield." "Nope, definitely a cat." "I don't like hiking above tree line," Milo says as we move on. "Why not? I love being above the trees with endless views, twisted crumholts, and tiny wildflowers, where the sky is vast and the weather changes moment to moment." "There's nothing there," Milo says. "I prefer trees." "It feels more secure in the trees," Emmett adds. These boys have lived their whole lives surrounded by trees. Our house in Maine is set in a small clearing between hemlock and pine, maple and beech, a tall red oak outside our front door. The landscapes of our childhood imprint on us. My mom tells me my grandmother, who came from Nebraska, where flat land stretches from horizon to horizon, hated it in the trees and even found mountains oppressive. I grew up in the suburbs, so I suppose I should feel most at home among green lawns and chain link fences. But it's big sky, wide open views, and bare bones of the earth that I long for, mountains and deserts. In the Blue Jays dance, Louise Erdrich describes being horizon sick, pining for North Dakota while living in New Hampshire. "I am suspicious of Eastern land," she writes. "The undramatic loveliness, the small scale, the lack of sky to watch, the way weather sneaks up without enough warning. In Maine, I am sky sick, desperate for a big open dome of blue or white or thundering gray above me, reaching to the hem of the earth. I don't want to feel secure. Above the trees, my lungs open, my heart soars. I can see, I can breathe, I'm free." The trail re-enters the forest and joins a dirt road. Emmett, Zephyr, and Milo squelch through mud puddles, and we come upon a small band of mule deer in the clearing. They watch us watching them for a while, then drop their heads and nibble at the grass as we hike on. The trail leaves the road and emerges from the trees along the edge of a hump of land that drops steeply to our left. We follow the hump to a meadow where we stop to collect water from a clear snowmelt stream below a mountain of loose boulders. The shy couple, with whom we leapfrogged in the Mount Massive wilderness area, passes by. In the mysterious way of trail life, we haven't seen them for weeks, and now here they are. The trail continues to weave in and out of trees and boulder fields. Clumps of gray clouds alternate with patches of blue, threatening rain. After lunch, we follow a long ridge up to Black Hawk Pass, where the earth has again turned red. Emmett reaches the pass ahead of Milo and me. "Are we going to climb Black Hawk Mountain?" he calls down. "I don't think so. Does the trail go that way?" "A trail goes up it. I'm going to climb part of it." He drops his pack and runs to the top of a small hump of land, then comes back. "It was a false summit," he says when we reach the pass. "Is Black Hawk a 14er? I checked the data book. It's 12,681 feet. That's pretty respectable. Curry and Zephyr catch up to us on the pass and hustle us down beneath looming gray-blue clouds. We fill up on water at Straight Creek, the last source for 20 miles, and each of us takes a bladder in addition to our 2 bottles. Emmett puts his bladder in the mesh side pocket of his backpack, but the pocket is large and loose, and the bladder slumps and slides back and forth, banging him in the arm with each step. After walking this way for a half mile or so, Emmett loses it. He screams and pummels his pack with his elbows. I thought he was impervious to discomfort, but the swinging water bladder has pushed him over the edge. I strap the bladder to the top of his pack, and he resumes hiking, his usual easygoing attitude restored. All afternoon, we followed the Animus Dolores Divide, a snaking ridge of land that is flat on top and drops steeply off on both sides. Where the crest bends west, opening up to spectacular views of the Needles Mountains and Weminuche Wilderness, we find the shy couple. They've set up camp and are taking pictures of each other doing handstands at the edge of the drop-off. We take a campsite next to theirs, and I copy them, taking pictures of the boys in funny poses in front of the view. While we wait for dinner to reconstitute, Milo and the twins argue over who has to start school sooner. I checked the high school calendar to verify Milo's first day is August 31st, 2 weeks from today, but I hadn't checked the elementary school calendar because they always start after Labor Day. Since we have a rare bit of cell service here, I open the school's webpage and discover that the twins are due back August 29th, 8 days earlier than I thought. That gives us just over a week to get home after we finish the trail. My chest tightens and my skin buzzes as I feel time speeding up. These weeks on the trail have let us step off the rushing tramway of life and slow to the pace of walking. With nowhere to go except the next campsite and nothing to do but walk, I've been able to concentrate on the here and now, not the next thing and the next one after that. Although life in rural Maine is not exactly a rat race, we rush around far more than I'd like. And though I strive to keep things simple, even a single regular activity per child makes me feel like I'm running the Red Queen's race. Meanwhile, life is passing me by, or maybe I'm speeding past life, in too much of a hurry to find the Jack in the Pulpit in bloom or pick wild strawberries. Shedding that hectic pace and living at 2 miles per hour, focusing on the here and now, neither in a hurry to get to the next thing, nor pining for what has passed, has been the trail's greatest gift, and I can already feel it slipping away.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
Yes, it got clear there at the end as
Oh,
tell we could hear you really well. Where in Maine are you right now?
I'm in Whitefield,
Is
which is like halfway between Augusta and Damascotta.
It's like
So
40 minutes from me up the road.
It's about in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, very rural.
You're very rural. That's what you said, and so I'm glad your internet is getting a little better. Thank you for going ahead, even though it was a little shaky at first. So
I hope it didn't sound too bad.
Well, you watch it and tell us if you want to come back and do it again, because you can.
Okay.
So there is a fair amount of geography. You talk about naming the natural world in there. How did you educate yourself about nature in that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there were, yes. So I grew up in Colorado, and I didn't know a lot of names of things or, how things worked. And when I came to Maine, I went to College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, which is sort of a nature-y school. And that's when I started learning about plants and trees and wildlife. And it kind of was like a awakening of the sense of wonder. And over the years, living in Maine and going home to visit Colorado, I've sort of just added more and more to that knowledge, mostly in terms of, the living aspects of the natural world. And I tried to learn, specific to getting ready for this hike, learn as much as I could about trees and plants and things. And then when I was writing the book is when I did research into the geology and the history. There's a lot in there about different natural resources use and abuse issues along the trail, like water reclamation and damming and mining and forest tree or clear cutting and grazing and things like that. So I some stuff I knew before I went, and then I did a lot of research while writing the book.
Well, it shows. Good for
Yeah.
you.
That line, in Maine, I am sky sick. It was so good.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
That's true.
I've only ever lived in Maine, but I feel like I can understand what you're saying.
There's a road near us that goes over the top of a hill, and on like a clear day, you can see Mount Washington 100 miles away. And I always feel like 50 pounds lighter and
Yeah.
like I'm floating when I drive over the top of that hill. It's a very different experience.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing all of that with us.
It's also about family, Andrea. I mean,
Yeah.
it's about hiking, geography, nature, but family. And so, and your children were pretty young. What were their ages again on this hike?
The twins were 11 and my older son was 15.
Yeah. And did they push back about going?
They were very reluctant about going. They were super awesome the whole hike, like troopers, good attitudes, great hiking energy. And then as soon as we got home, they were like, that was the worst summer of our life.
Well, I'm glad you took them. And that was a while ago. So you guys they're okay now.
They're still alive, so it didn't hurt him that bad.
Well,
My oldest son has done some backpacking since then, when he went to college. And then I sent my husband and all 3 kids on part of the Appalachian Trail last summer to get them out of the house. So
Nice.
they're not devoted hikers, but they're less resistant to it than they were before for the few years in between.
That's great. And that's a more lasting experience than Disney World, right? They're going to remember that hiking trip forever. Whereas I've never wanted to go to Disney World, so.
Me neither.
Yeah. Way too crazy.
Will she bring Eder back and we can all talk together a little bit? Thank you again, Andrea.
Thank you.
And your book is out now.
It's out, yeah.
Again, hiking.
It's called Uphill Both Ways. And you can find it at, online. It's was published by Bison Books. You can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or bookshop.org.
Very cool.
It's in some libraries, and hopefully it's going into some local bookstores too. I've been nagging them.
I work at the library in Bath, so I'll have to make sure we order it and get it added to our collection.
Well, I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Very cool. And Eder, your book is out also, the one for youngish readers?
It is not yet out. It's still being born. The one that I read from tends to end up in rare. It's like kind of seen as a rare book, and it's in a lot of libraries at universities, but not so much easily accessible at this point, not mass produced because it's an art book. But hopefully maybe one day.
I hope so too.
I
Beautiful.
wanted to say to Andrea, it's very interesting because both of our pieces, mine about the mangrove and yours about the Colorado Trail, kind of has obviously a natural point of view, but I was so struck by the part where you were talking about the mountain's icy geological drama. And I was like, yes, I can completely connected to that moment of like that wonder of how this all came to be. And looking at that with such like, whoa, trying to even imagine that it happened so way before us,
Right. It makes us seem a little less important than we think we are. But I see the same drama in the mangrove poetry too, poem, that the history and the formation, and then the roseate spoonbill coming down from heaven. And it's a story. It's not just a backdrop, nature and landscape. It's a story in and of itself.
Right. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I also felt that deep visceral feeling of like you were immersed in the experience, and then you looked at time and realized you had to go back to school, send the kids back earlier than you thought. And all of a sudden, everything, the mind just went back into that state of franticness. And I was like, oh, we just were on spring break, so I'm feeling that right now.
Oh, yeah, I know. There are so many, all that stuff. It just, so it's frantic. It's frantic. Kids and time.
I always wonder, like, how can we like close our eyes, remember the feeling place of being in those natural spaces, and then like project it into our present,
Oh, that's a beautiful idea. I like that. Mostly I just kind of like try to crawl back to them, but it probably makes more sense to bring it with you.
Or just keep writing about it, because then you can always live in those moments.
You're really good at this, Eder. If you ever want to co-host with Shannon, you just say the word.
Well, maybe we can give it a try one day. You guys are so good at it, though. I think, I'm happy to leave it in your good hands.
Well, you have a wonderful energy. Thank you both so much for coming on and reading, and Andrea for persevering with the Wi-Fi, Eder for sharing your beautiful work. Your new poem, Proverbs 32, coming to the Bible translation near you someday.
Yeah.
It'll be in the hotel drawer. I don't know. One of my favorite parts of Stonecoast was listening to the poets reading their work out loud. And it was so lovely to hear that out of your very own voice. And it makes me think I should seek out for poets reading their work online. I think it's in person.
It was truly strong writing, Eder,
Yeah.
and Andrea also.
Yeah.
I will let you guys go. Shannon,
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next week, we have Amy DeGroat and Karina Bissett who are reading. And we have readers every week for several weeks through the beginning of May. So come back Sunday nights. We'll be here with fresh voices and faces. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too.